Are you feeling overwhelmed by taxes, uncertain about your business finances, or worried about protecting what you already have built? Well, you're not alone, and there's a better way. I'm Ashley Freeman. I'm a tax and asset protection attorney, and this is Tax and Money Mastery, where faith meets financial wisdom. Each week, I'll show you how to legally reduce your taxes, manage your money with clarity, and protect your business and personal assets so that you can focus on what truly matters most: God, family, and career. Proverbs 10:22 says, "The blessing of the Lord makes one rich. He adds no sorrow." So grab your coffee and settle in. This is a podcast you can't afford to miss. Hi guys, welcome to Tax and Money Mastery. I'm Ashley Freeman, your host. I'm a tax and asset protection attorney. And today we're going to talk about the biblical blueprint for wealth, paying your children, reducing your taxes, and instilling God's work principles with your children. Let's roll. All right, so there's three main ways that you can pay your kids through your business. You can pay them a 1099, just like you would any contract labor, but you got to make sure that they are really contract labor according to your state definition and the federal definition. So that can be kind of hard to do sometimes, but you can also pay them on payroll. So if you're already paying payroll to yourself, like if you have an S Corp or a C Corp where you're taking payroll and you already have a payroll company doing that, or you've got the payroll software and you do it yourself, you can run payroll for them, which would mean taking out all the taxes, the federal and state taxes, as well as Social Security and Medicare, and then matching that as well as the employer. You got to match the Social Security and the federal and the Medicare. Okay, so that's payroll. And the third way is give them a W-2. So if you have kids under 18, that's when it becomes more valuable to you to be able to shift income. There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing illegal about this. It's just shifting income from your higher tax bracket to your child's lower tax bracket. If your kids are over 18, you can still hire them, but you're going to have to run payroll. You have to take taxes out. You have to match their Medicare and their Social Security. Okay, so if they're under 18, this year in 2025, you can pay them up to $15,750 tax-free. That's subject to change every year. It usually goes up, but $15,750 is the standard deduction. So if you keep them under the standard deduction, they don't owe any taxes. All right, so the first way, if you are able to pay them on a 1099, you're going to pay them out of your business. You're going to have them fill out a W-9, or if they're not old enough, you're going to fill it out for them, obviously, because you're their parent. And then at the end of the year, they're going to have to file a 1040, and they're going to be responsible for 50% of the Medicare and Social Security. So out of that money, you would have to save some because they're going to owe taxes if you do it that way. But if you pay them a 1099, your business is not going to have to pay Social Security or Medicare on them. So it's kind of a trade-off there. If you're going to pay your kids on a W-2, which is usually the best way, at the end of the year, you're still going to give them a W-2 that just has zeros where the taxes withheld would be normally. You're also going to have to file a Form 940 and a 941 for your business. So the easiest way to pay kids that are under 18 on a W-2 is either through a disregarded LLC that you own, or it can be a partnership. But if it's a partnership, both of the partners have to be the parents. You can't have a partner and then a friend who's a partner. It has to be only the parents of the child that are partners. We don't normally do it that way through a partnership. It's normally an LLC, or we could do it on a Schedule C like cat, on your personal 1040. Now, the way that would look would be, let's say you have an S Corp and your child works in the S Corp. Maybe they do social marketing for you. 15-year-old, you know that 15-year-olds know more about social marketing than you and I do. When my grandson was 6, he knew how to shoot, edit, and upload his own little TikTok video. Blows my mind. Anyways, kids are amazing nowadays, what they can do. Let's say your S Corp, your child's working for your S Corp and doing social marketing. You're going to pay your kid $15,750 for what he does because it's worth it. And how this is all going to pan out is, let's say your Schedule C, let's just call it Ashley's Labor. So Ashley's Labor is going to charge my S Corp Ashley's Cookies for the labor that my child provided. Ashley's labor sends an invoice to Ashley's Cookies, the S Corp, and Ashley's Cookies, the S Corp, pays, cuts a check, does whatever. Ashley's labor pays them $15,750 for the labor. Ideally, we don't want to do it just once a year. We want to pay them a little more frequently than that, but it can be once a year. So now the S Corp takes a deduction for the $15,750 that it just paid for labor because it received marketing for that labor. So now Ashley's labor is going to pay Junior the $15,750 for all of his marketing labor that he's done. On the Schedule C, on Ashley's labor Schedule C that's going on to my 1040, it's now going to show that I paid, there's an expense for labor for $15,750. So it zeroes itself out because Ashley's labor didn't do anything else other than provide labor for Ashley's S Corp Cookies. So you're not going to create a red flag to the IRS by having a Schedule C that's showing, a negative amount in there. That's the only time that a Schedule C is going to raise red flags, when you keep showing a negative balance that you're losing money in it. Because then they're going to say, wait a second, this is maybe just a hobby that you're doing or some other thing that you're trying to do to avoid taxes illegally. So it zeroes out, so it's not a problem. At the end of the year, Ashley's labor is going to file a 940 and a 941. Those are both forms for employees. And since you're keeping it at or below the $15,750, there's no taxes due. You don't have to pay tax on it personally, and your child doesn't have to pay tax on it personally. You're going to have to continue filing a Form 940 and a 941 since you've hired that child, even kind of after the child's no longer working for you. Your payroll, whoever's doing your payroll for you, or if it's you, can help you do that. It's not a big deal to file a 940 and 941. But that's how that's going to work. Okay, so now that we've gone through those a little bit, and you kind of have an idea of how you're going to pay your kids, what you're going to do is pay your kids into an account that has their name on it and your name on it, and show that money going in there. Now, there's nothing that says that your child can't pay for their own school clothes, or for their private tuition for a private school, or they can pay for their own snacks, their own food for school, hot lunch. There's nothing that says you can't do it that way. That's why it works so well when you've got a child under 18 and they're still at home. You have control of their money, and you can use it for those things. But you've also shifted it from your high income bracket to their low income bracket. It's a huge, huge savings when you've got kids at home and can do that. Here's a little hack for you. When your children are over 18 and now they're in college, you can't really deduct college tuition. I mean, you do get some breaks, but you definitely can't deduct the whole thing. But if you hire your kid that's over 18, that's in college, hire them in your business, make them work for it, and then they can pay their own tuition, and your company can get a deduction. And they're probably going to be higher paid at your company than they would somewhere else, but as long as it's a reasonable wage for what they're doing, you're fine. You should keep, when you're doing this, when you hire your kids, you should make up a job description for them so that you have that on file. They should keep a time card. These are the hours that I worked. Even if it's really little kids, there's usually something that they can do, like in your administrative office at the house. They can sweep, they can dust, mop, whatever it is. If they're teenagers, they can learn accounting. They already know social media better than you do. I promise you that. They could teach you social media. I'm not kidding. Kids are great at that. Make sure before you hire your kids that you check the state laws, though. I'm not going to go into state law here because they're all different, but check your state laws also, just to make sure of what the level is that you need to withhold state taxes from your child, because that could be different. When I'm talking here, I'm always talking about federal law, unless I stated otherwise. All right, so when you're teaching your kids, or when you're hiring your kids, you're teaching them about godly ways of working. You teach them work ethics. You're teaching them that you need to show up every day and you need to do the best job possible. We should be teaching our kids Colossians 3:22 through 24. This is from the Amplified Bible Classic Edition. Whatever may be your task, work at it heartily from the soul, as if something done for the Lord and not for men, knowing with all certainty that it is from the Lord and not from men, that you will receive your inheritance, which is your real reward. The one whom you are actually serving is the Lord Christ. I think that's just such a beautiful verse, but it also really hits home. There's so many kids nowadays that don't have work ethics. They weren't taught work ethics. You can really tell a difference when you stand two kids beside each other, one that their family has a business and one that doesn't, whose families are just employees of somebody else. It teaches them something. It teaches them responsibility, and they need to know that. I'll never forget one time, I knew this even as a child, even though, my parents brought me up Christian, and I was always told that, do whatever you're doing, do it unto the Lord. So my very first job, I worked at a restaurant, and my bosses were two Italian brothers. So they kind of had, they could get hot-tempered sometimes. And so I remember having a heated conversation with one of them, and this had nothing to do with work whatsoever. It was something totally different, and it was actually a spiritual kind of thing. And he got mad at me, and so he banished me to the walk-in cooler to clean the walk-in cooler on my hands and knees with a toothbrush. So as I'm sitting there cleaning the walk-in cooler, and he's probably thinking, got her back, showed her who's boss. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're paying me to do this, dude. Who's the real dummy here? But I got paid for it anyways. And so I guess he got his revenge on me, and I got paid, and we both had thoughts that who was the smarter of the two, I guess. Anyways, teach your kids godly principles, and when they're old, they shall not depart from them. Thanks. Hope this blessed you in some way. If it did, please share it with somebody else who may need help. If you would like, I can send you an emailed copy of How to Pay Your Kids. I've got a PDF on it. If so, you can email me at taxandmoneymastery@gmail.com. taxandmoneymastery@gmail.com. And I'll send you a copy of that PDF. Thanks. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this podcast or got something out of it, please leave a review for me below. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks.